All right. It says we're live, and nobody's in here right now, but somebody will be here in a minute. So we need to do like a story time or something like a quick 30-second story or something like that. So it says there's
Hey,
one
if you're in
person.
here, let's get a 2x4. As soon as we see some 2x4s, we will get started.
So I can tell you a little story about how I got started beekeeping.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
how'd
it.
that happen?
Well, my wife wanted to start beekeeping, and
So then you wanted to start.
exactly. So 25 years in the army, right? All that time, when I was a kid, I got stung by something in Utah, where my dad was stationed at the time, and I swole up. And they're like, he's allergic to honeybees. That was a honeybee. So all my career, I wore a little red dog tag that says allergy honeybee, right? 2013, like no lie, I retired in at the end of August, beginning of September, and Desiree's like, I know what I want for Christmas. I said, what's that? She said, I want a hive of bees, and I went, you want to get rid of me already? I mean, come on. So no lie, we got bees and put them out in the yard, and then there's a whole big story behind that. Like we did everything wrong, of course. We just bought bees, and all the things I tell people in classes not to do.
Yeah.
Which is how that's how you learn, right? You get punched in the face, you learn. You go, oh,
Yeah.
don't do that again. But anyway, yeah, that's one of my punchlines at class all the time because I was like, really,
That's
25 years
funny.
of bees, and you want bees? First day I'm retired, and if she's there,
All
she'll
right.
always,
Forrest and Bill, can you hear us? Is it all good? I'm assuming yes. They're saying, hey,
Yeah.
everything's good.
Now, Greg, are you actually allergic to honeybees then?
no, because like I say, the probably second or third time we bought the moon suits, walk around, you got the whole schmeal all the way down to your feet because I was like, well, I'm allergic, I probably need to be careful. Like the
Yeah.
second or third time I left the zipper unzipped and got stung. And she's like, oh my gosh, we got to get the EpiPen. And I'm like, let's just settle down a minute. Let's just wait a minute, see what's going on. And because I don't feel anything, we're going to figure it out, and I didn't have anything but a regular bee sting. And, so the rest is history.
Sometimes people grow out of allergies. I mean,
I
it
don't think I
happens.
was allergic to bees. I think they just rolled the cosmic dice. Something stung me and they just said it was a honeybee because nobody knew what stung me.
Gotcha.
Well,
So something out there I'm still allergic to, but I don't know what it is.
All
well,
right, everybody, we are back. Kentucky Sustainable Living. We're here to talk about festival stuff. We've got Greg New. He's going to be teaching our beekeeping class at the festival. Greg, we are so happy to have you here.
I'm stoked to be here.
oh yeah, I'm excited. I got to talk to Greg. Greg hit me yesterday, and he was like, "Hey, let's do a test run and make sure everything works." So Greg and I talked for like an hour last night, and this is the way it always turns out. It's like, let's do a quick thing. Everything works, and then we start talking, and we look up, and it's like, holy crap! It's been like an hour and a half. So I got to talk to
You're a
him.
beekeeper, and Jason is a social butterfly.
Yeah,
So we're both pollinators.
yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
or bullshitters.
Yeah, one or the other. Maybe both. Yeah, it was a good talk. I had a good time. Like I say, when I got upstairs, I was like, wow, it's way late past my bedtime.
Oh yeah. Now, just think what it'd been. It'd been like 4 hours if we had had Mike on here too.
Oh, now I guess you got a dose of that. My brother he can sling the words now. He can.
So,
We had a good time talking to Mike.
Yeah, I mean, you can't not have a good time with him. I started to bring his book and do a little plug for him, since he threw me under the bus the other day. But
here, I've got it down here.
there you go, the old book. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm on I'm like got 100 pages left to go. I'm not a big fiction reader, but I've been busting through it because I want to be able to talk to him about it when I get there.
Hey, it's good. I'm ready for book two. So, because
Yeah.
I asked him, I'm like, I'm going to buy book two at the festival, and he's like, I will have one for you. I'm like, good deal. So,
I haven't read it yet because I've been waiting to get it from him instead of buying it from Amazon. So,
Right. Keep the money out of the Chinese.
right.
yeah, exactly.
Y'all
All
like
right.
your buddy Sean too.
Yeah.
Hey, check this out.
What is
Forrest
it?
is giving you a big old shout out, man. It says out of the 3 or 4 B classes I've been to, yours in Ohio was the most informational one yet. I learned a lot.
glad to hear that, Forrest.
All right. Greg, you can see the comments, right?
Yes, sir. I got it where I can see them.
All right, because Mike didn't have it where the comments were popping up, and then he finally found it at the end. He's like, "Oh, these people were putting comments in." He was like, "I didn't know they were doing that." So
Yeah, that was the live that we did that I cut everybody off.
yeah,
Yeah, I watched it.
yeah. Shelly's like, "I gotta go," and then she's like, "Boom, in stream," and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that." And me and Mike are like, "You ruined her night. Thanks, Shelly." So, it's kind of like your mom and dad do. It's like flipped all the lights off, and it's like, I'm going to bed. I don't care what y'all do.
Right.
You know, I left here and I had to go meet up with Melanie at up in Cave City. And she said her and Clint were watching it while they're driving down here. And she said that all I heard was oh when I went, oh shit. And she said it was like, oh God. And she goes, I knew what Shelly said.
Well, you had your faux pas. I had mine last night. For some reason, the G in my keyboard is stuck. And so while I'm talking to him and trying to hurry up and get ready, I put my password in wrong 3 times and had to recover everything while he was patiently waiting on me and talking to me on the phone. Oh, yeah, it was a terrible night.
Man.
But we got it worked out. Hey, Grit and Grace, how are you? Grit and Grace came in. All right, Greg, for everybody that does not know, give us, you told us how you got into bees, that your wife was trying to kill you after you retired. So
Exactly.
So let's start. Let's start, talk about your military career, what you got and did with some of that, and then go into how you're a beekeeper now and a farming beekeeper.
Okay. Well, even before my military and all through my military, I've always been into gardening, and there wasn't a such thing as prepper back then, but outdoorsy kind of stuff, right? I started my career as military intelligence out at Fort Irwin National Training Center, and that was back when the Cold War was going on. So I'm aging myself a little bit, but I taught Russian tactics out there, and then my next duty station was with First Special Forces Group in Okinawa as a support guy, and went over there and they took me under their wing. I did radio watch and drove buses and did stuff, and they took me on over the horizon, scuba swims at night and all kind of stuff, and I just fell in love with it. So from Okinawa, I went through the whole process, selection and all that, and ended up in 3rd Group. And I spent 13 years, which is the longest I've ever lived anywhere in my life. So I spent 13 years in 3rd Group at Fort Bragg. We started out in the Caribbean as our area of operations. I was down for Haiti for Uphold Democracy when we, helped them figure out who their president was going to be, and did a lot of stuff with the Jamaicans and the Bahamians. And then we switched channels over to Africa. I did some Central West Africa stuff and Djibouti and not Djibouti, Ghana and Benin and what was called African Crisis Relief Initiative. They were trying to make a UN in Africa at the time, or like that kind of thing. Then they decided they wanted us to learn how to run in the desert, so they sent us to Kuwait to do training with a 5th Group. And while I was in Kuwait, 9/11 happened, so that kind of locked me into the wartime. So I started there, redeployed home, and then went through some other training. Went back, trained Iraqi counterterrorism force for 3 or 4 years, on and off, 4 months on, 4 months off, over there for a good little bit of time, and then I transitioned over to 5th Group and continued deploying to Iraq. I went through the region too. I was the head trainer in Jordan. We were training a bunch of people there to move into Iraq and Kyrgyzstan, just all over that whole region over there for the next all the way until 2012. So really, I was too busy to do what I really liked doing, other than the military, which was gardening, farming, exploring new venues. So when I got kind of done with my last deployment in late 2011, we really started putting the gas. Like, she started with the bees in 13. She let me know in 12. And then right after, well, we had bought, sorry, let me back up. 2007, when I moved to Fort Campbell, right, we bought our forever place out here where I live now. That's where this undisclosed underground bunker is that I'm in. So we bought 110 acres out here, and we've just used it as like a learning center, really. We started out with bees, then we went into her soaps and salves because we were into herbs, and we wanted to figure out a way to use our wax and herbs. And she had some skin issues or whatever, so we came up with Meadow Magic. I don't know if you can see that, but so it was our wax plus yard weeds. Really, it was planting and chickweed and things that we found around here that we'd look up, and so we worked on that for a little while, and she started using that, and then that kind of led to friends asking about it, and then it kind of developed a market, and so we kind of branched out a little bit from there and started doing a couple other different salves and tinctures and stuff, and then I'd always wanted to try to make soap. I'm a prepper. I'm just an experimenter, right? I wanted to make lye soap. And so I did a lot of reading on it, found out that if you use wood ash, you can make lye, but the soap's real unreliable. And by this time, she kind of had a little cottage industry going on. And I didn't want unreliable soap. So we just used old Red Devil lye and learned to make soap, which was interesting because lye and water, all that stuff. So we kind of went that way. And then we got the starter, the starter addiction for most homesteaders. We got chickens. We got a whole bunch of free range chickens and guineas, and had them out here and just fell in love with that. We planted a whole bunch of fruit and blueberries, all the normal stuff, right? Then we did heritage hogs for about 4 years. We were AIing, and from AI all the way to the market, and we were selling feeder pigs. And bees, we started out with one hive, which was a big mistake. We'll talk about that in class. And it died out by August. And then the next year we went and got in a bee class and a bee club, and got a mentor, and so that kind of took off with like 4 or 5 hives for a little while. And if you guys have never done bees, or if you don't know anything about it, it's like crack. And I've never done crack, but I'm like what I know crack, right? It's very addictive, especially for problem-solving kind of people, So we ended up with like 50-something hives here a couple of years ago on 4 apiaries. And I mean, we had hogs, and we had chickens, and we had, bees, and we were just running and garden, and, canning and doing all that. So we were run ragged. So last year, the head executive of the place, Desiree, decided, hey, I'm going to put this on the table. Like, hey, I think we really need to kind of cut the hogs because they're fun. We love them. We had a good time with them, but we just got too much going on. So she did that. That was kind of her baby. She wanted to do that, and I went along with that. It kind of still hurts a little bit because I do like it, and I have all the infrastructure now. And then I said, well, our bee quality has dropped off a little bit because, I mean, during nectar flow, you're in bees like every other day for, most of the week. So we dropped back to 20 hives and 2 apiaries. And now we're doing a few more shows and, doing a little more teaching and that kind of stuff. So I think we're trying to find our balance, between hitting it and getting it and trying to do everything in the world to, hey, we found some things that we really like, besides gun building and reloading and, all the other normal stuff. And so we've hit our pace now. So that's kind of where we're at. We go to shows for her soaps and salves. And if there's a teaching slot available for something that I'm qualified to teach for, I teach. And if not, we just go anyway. And that gets us out, because I teach Sunday school and I drive the bus. So it's nice to get away, once a month or so. And that's where we're at.
Awesome. All right. Before I forget, on the military side, were you a better intel guy than Mike? Because Mike,
I don't know, man. I mean,
Mike totally admitted he was not good at intel.
Yeah, well, see, but see, Mike has the gift of gab, right? Mike doesn't know. I mean, he can make friends with anybody.
Yeah.
And we were in kind of different sections. Like I did teach unconventional warfare at 5th Group as a contractor afterwards in our program, but he really went hard at that, and I was in more of a human resource kind of assets kind of thing, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha.
So I think he's extremely good at it. I don't make friends real easy, and like I say, we went training out there, and he and I have kept touch, ever since. And I think he's a real good friend of mine. So yeah, I think he's a little bit of a BSer and not good at intel. And he's a smart guy now, and he does a lot of stuff. I know we're not here to talk about Mike, but he is a good dude.
And then Forrest.
What do you say? Military intelligence, oxymoron? Yes, sir. I've always heard that.
Yeah. All right. So you had 50 hives at one time. That's like a massive undertaking right there. I mean,
Right.
if you got 50 hives, you're constantly doing something with those bees, aren't you?
Yeah. And see, it's a whole different kind of beekeeping, because like when you have 20 hives and you do like, say, maybe do one apiary of 10 hives, you got time to like take your foot off the gas and enjoy it and go in there and do in-depth, looking and like make sure every little detail's right. You got 50 hives, you open that bad boy, you make sure you got a queen that's laying the right kind of pattern, right kind of eggs, and there's no big disease processes going on. And do they need room? And you close it. You know what I mean? I don't even go to the bottom. I look, find the eggs. Oh, I got eggs. They're regular eggs. Okay, good. They got room, or they don't have room. Write it in a notebook, close it up, go. So it's a difference between like a 20-minute work per hive and a 5-minute work per hive. Gotcha. And it's not fun. It's just like anything when you get industrialized. You know what I mean? You just get too big. It just takes all the joy out of it to me. I like to sell honey, and I like to make honey, and I like to eat honey, as you can tell. But I don't like that much honey.
Yeah.
And even honey slinging was huge. I mean, like we had to buy like a 21 frame electric thing, and it was like an all night, not all night, but 10, 11 o'clock at night thing to try to get it all slung. And man, by the end of the day, you're sore from carrying all that honey, because honey's heavy.
Yeah. Wow. I've been saying for like the last 4 years, I've been telling my wife, I'm like, we need to get some hives. We need to get some hives. And it's like, she's like, okay, that's cool. And then it's always something else comes through, and it's like, we didn't get bees this year. So I'm going to commit to next year, hopefully having bees is one thing I would like to do.
Well, if you want to do it next year, by winter time, you need to be finding your source of your bees, because they'll be sold out a lot of places. And man, you really need to find the bee club and get a mentor, because I can tell you some good books like Bees for Dummies. I know that sounds kind of cliche, and Idiot's Guide to Bees. Those are the two best bee books there are. And there's some other resources, but man, there's just sometimes you just sit there and just have to scratch your head, and you really need somebody that knows what they're looking at.
Well, now that kind of segues in the auction for Caleb House, the charity auction we're doing Saturday night for Caleb House. We've got 2 bee nukes that we're auctioning off, and you've been kind enough to do a consultation for those. So you've got a chance to buy a bee nuke there, and then Greg, within a certain limit, we hadn't set the limit of how far he's going to go, will come out and do a consultation at your house, kind of help you get them set up. I might just buy both those nukes and make you come up here then.
That'd be fine. That'd be within my travel range.
Yeah. So we might just do that. So,
or you can do it in addition. Just I'll just throw your consultation in for free for hosting me at this show.
All right, we can do that. I agree.
Grace wants to know how much land you should dedicate for one hive.
It really doesn't take a lot of land. What it takes is putting it somewhere where you're not going to be in front of them all the time. You know what I mean? So is she in it's hard to say. If she's in a neighborhood, she needs to be able to point it somewhere where it's not going to sting the neighbor kids, and where every time she mows the grass, she's not getting eat up. If she's got, if she's got a 5-acre lot and she can put it on the back there facing toward the woods, they don't take, a hive, that's all it takes as far as space. It's just as far as getting it in a place where people aren't going to interact with them.
And it's more about, I guess it's more about what plants you've got around, really, isn't it?
Yeah, they're gonna find forage. Y'all are probably the same as us. Like us, for y'all have tulip poplar, yellow poplar there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yellow poplar is our major nectar source here. All the rest of the nice flavorings you get in the honey are dictated by like your micro area you're talking about. You know, like do you live near the river, or you know, do they have some sourwood or whatever? But their major spring nectar flow is yellow poplar through most of this region. So, you know, with that, they can pretty much they'll make it.
Okay. All
The
right.
big thing for her also, though, I would say is make sure that they have a clean, reliable water source closer than her neighbor's pool,
All right.
or she'll have bad rapport.
All right. Yeah. Grace has got a farm, and I forgot Grace is up north just a little bit. I forgot. I think she's in. Shoot, I forgot. She's up north from us a little bit, but she's got a farm over there, and she's got cattle and stuff like that. So she's probably got a pretty good place to do some bees.
I had some in a cattle. Well, I got a guy from co-op that lets me keep bees on places he rents, and they had cows in there one time. If you put them in a cow yard, you know, obviously if you have cows, you probably know this, but you got to put T-posts up and put either cattle panels or something around them to keep because they'll go in there and rub on them and knock them over.
Yeah. Wow. The cows are the worst thing. I've got one cow and a calf with my sheep, and that cow, well, I mean, if she wants to get out, she just goes through the fence, and I'm like, and then at the darn bull calf last night, we're sitting there watching that movie. Lincoln looks over at me. He goes, "Charlie's in the front yard," or what? Calvin. Calvin is his name. He's like, "Calvin's in the front yard." I'm like, "What the heck?" So I run back, and he just jumps back over the electric fence. I'm like, "You stupid calf!" So,
right.
He's going to be a good tasting hamburger when he gets big enough.
Yeah, you got to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
We had one big sow that, like, all our sows were bucket trained, and you know, you go down and rub their back and they'd roll over and let you rub their belly and all that. But I mean, they're like 650, 700-pound sows, right?
yeah.
And so people don't want to mess with them. But we had one sow that we just could not, because I use single strand electric polywire, and she just, when she wanted out, when there was acorns or whatever, she was out. So yeah, she made ham. I couldn't do it.
Grace wants to know, have you ever caught a wild swarm?
Yes, I have. I've done cutouts out of buildings and barns. I catch a lot of swarms actually outside of my apiary. If I miss a queen cell, they swarm. So I catch them and put them in a nuke, and then I give them away.
Okay.
Because I don't want more bees. But yeah, swarms are fun to catch. There's a lot of biology in that, but just understand when you catch a swarm that's usually a second-year queen. And queens are usually good for about 3 years. They'll live a lot longer than that, but they'll run out of sperm, and so then they'll start laying drone eggs. So when you catch a swarm, you need it needs to be a spring swarm, because if you catch a fall swarm or a late summer swarm, they probably you're going to be feeding them and nursing them along if they make it at all. But if you catch a nice spring swarm, just understand that next spring you're probably going to want to either make them make a new queen, which you can do, or buy a new queen, because she's probably of limited use. But I mean, free bees are free bees.
Yeah.
You can always give her the old, you know, friendly hug and put them on top of another hive with a newspaper in between and just strengthen another hive too.
Okay.
Bill wants to know, is it true that bees will travel up to 5 miles from their hive?
It's usually accepted. It's a 3-mile radius, so 6-mile diameter, but with them in the middle is that's about their foraging range. And
Forrest wants to know, what affects the flavor or color of the honey your bees produce?
All pollen. It's all pollen and nectar, and it's what's bloomed. And if you hear people that like they do orange blossom honey or sourwood honey or whatever like that, they empty their supers out and then they put fresh supers on them during that bloom that they're targeting. And then as soon as that bloom is gone, they pull the supers off and do whatever honey they do. I don't do that. It's too complicated. I get just wildflower honey, and it's different every year, different darkness, whatever. But yeah, it's influenced by what does well and what the bees are in. Like I'll have a whole yard full of clover, and maybe the mimosa trees are blooming kind of right then, and they won't touch the clover. But some years they'll do clover, or some years my neighbor will plant sunflowers, and I'll get a bunch of real clear, you know, sunflower honey that tends to crystallize. So it's all on the nectar and what's available and what they choose.
How do you keep a wild swarm from absconding?
Okay. I haven't had a lot of trouble with that. I don't follow the rules that are normally accepted, but the normally accepted rule would be you would lock them in a hive and move them to your location. Put some grass over the entrance so that they have to kind of slow down to go out, so they figure out where they're at, and put some kind of liquid feed on them. Probably either I usually put it on a top feeder and then put a box over it and a lid over it so they don't get robbed or whatever. But the reason they'll abscond is either they've got real bad mites, which you're not probably going to have time to figure that out and get rid of it, or they get there and there's not a nectar source or something going on, or they don't like their environment. So, in my advice to you would be put them in a nice box with drawn foundation if you have it. If not, good clean foundation, and put some sugar water on them for probably a couple of weeks until you see them starting to cap some honey. And then that's not going to be good honey to take off, but you're not going to do that on a first year swarm anyway. You're just trying to get them lardered up for the winter, really.
All right. Well, Greg, my question? How hard is it for a guy? I've never messed with bees. How hard is it for a guy to get in and start with bees? I know you said find a good club and find a mentor. I mean,
Well,
how hard is it for somebody to get proficient with it? I know you're always going to be learning stuff.
So there's different degrees. So number one, you're going to be in a little cache. If you bought those nukes, you kind of know that, right?
Yeah.
You got to buy a box, and if you always want to start out with 2 hives. So you're automatically, there's 2 full sets of 3 or 4 boxes, lids, bottoms, a whole 9 yards, and you always want to have at least 1 extra above what you got, because you're going to have a swarm, or you're going to need a split, or you're going to get queen cells. So really, you may as well just buy 4 hives. Okay. So you're in some cash right there. And if you're not going to bee meetings, bee clubs are structured in that they'll tell you what went on this month and what you need to be doing for next month through the whole year. And so they're super helpful. If you're not doing that, you need to be on like some podcast or reading a book, and you just got to be prepared to be able to fail. But if you have 2 hives, you can fix it. But if you have a mentor like me on speed dial, I can probably help you out.
Okay. All right.
You can do it. I hear bee population. Okay. So bee populations are not, that's a complicated thing. So everybody's talking about colony collapse disorder and all this stuff. Varroa mite is the biggest impactor of bees anywhere. And it's controllable, but it still has a large impact. But right now, currently, 99%, well, probably 87% of the bees in America are commercial beekeepers. And then in that, they have them on pallets in little boxes, and they move them to the almonds, because all your almonds are pollinated by honeybees. And then there's like 5 or 6 or 7. There's canola oil, there's soybeans, there's apples, there's blueberries, there's all these different things. And they all independent contractors, they make these little routes and contracts, and they move bees. But there's millions and millions of colonies are moved to California every year. Wild, I say wild, it's not wild, it's feral bees, because bees are not native to America. So they're feral, not wild, right? Feral bee colonies are down mostly because of Varroa destructor, which is a little mite, looks like a tick, that's very limiting to bees and very hard on them, and brings a lot of viruses and weakens them down. So wild colonies don't have any, they haven't developed a resistance for it. Yeah. Because it jumped from a wasp to the bees, which never happens with parasites, but it did happen. And then also there's small hive beetles, which came from Africa, which are detrimental to bees too. They're not near the impact of varroa mites. So all that blah, blah, blah. Feral colonies are down. You won't see, you can't just go out and look at a puddle and do a beeline, follow bees until you can't see it, and then follow it and then cut down a tree and get a hive as much as you used to. But there are more hives or more bees in America than there ever have been because of commercial keepers.
So he wanted to know what the biggest threats were to the bee populations.
That's going to be varroa mite. Period. I mean,
Okay. All
the,
right.
the colony collapse disorder and all that kind of revolve around it and neonicotinoid and some of the other bad pesticides they're using nowadays. Um, Kind of a combined effect is what they're saying.
Grace lives in Maryland. She wants to know how to overwinter bees.
All right. See, in Tennessee and Kentucky, we don't have to wrap them and do all that, and I'm not super familiar with it. I've watched it on YouTube, and I've got a guy watching England that does it. They wrap. They're depending on where they're at. They either wrap with insulation or with like tar paper, like roofing tar paper, in the wintertime and close them up. But I'm not. I'm a local beekeeper. I'm not really qualified to tell you. They do keep them. They keep them in Alaska now. But
Wow.
a lot of times what they'll do is they keep them in a shed, and the beehive butts up to the wall of the shed, right? And so inside the shed, they got to keep them cold enough to keep them dormant. But then as soon as spring happens, they go out. But and that's kind of new, and it's not super common. But yeah, in Maryland you can keep them. You just gotta get with your local bee club. In Tennessee, there's a lot of red tape.
Bill says in Tennessee there's a lot of red tape crap with keeping to become a beekeeper.
You can become a beekeeper if just because you want to. I mean, there's no red tape involved at all, and you don't have to pay taxes up to 50 gallons of honey. It's called the. I'm not going to tell you because I'll quote it wrong, but there's a law on the books in most states. There's red tape as far as moving bees or selling hive bodies without bees in them. There's rules and regulations about it, but it's not like the highway patrol. There's nobody out there enforcing it, and I'm not encouraging people to break the law. But you can buy bees from anybody, and you can keep bees. They do have a registry. They ask you to register your hive locations, and I'm not a big. Obviously, I'm in this community. I'm not a big government follower, right? But in Tennessee, at least, it has some really good benefits in that. There's this one disease called American foul brood, which is it's a bacteria that has a little shell on it that makes it be able to like go dormant, and it'll last for 10 years in the dirt or whatever. So American foul brood, there's only one thing you can do with American foul brood when you have bees, and that's burn your hive and everything in it, kill the bees, because it will spread to all the beekeepers around, and they'll have to burn their hives. So in Tennessee, if you register your hives, they have a program where they will help recoup your losses if you have to call the beekeeper in and destroy hives. That's the only real advantage, other than being right with the law.
Yeah.
But it's not hard at all to get bees here, and I'd be glad to talk to you at the show or whatever.
Bill's down in Jackson is where he's at.
Okay, yeah, it's not far from me.
Well, you talking about moving bees and stuff. It's the old saying is, if it doesn't look right, move it at night.
Yeah. Oh, now I move my bees. You're allowed to move your bees, but just there's a fire ant zone down here, and I think there's some kind of thing about not moving bees from a fire ant zone to a non-fire ant zone, and I don't know what the rules are on the highway. Actually, I've never asked. Tried by 12 instead of carried by 6, right?
Yeah.
So,
I always say it's easier to ask for forgiveness and permission on some things.
Right. Same thing. Yeah. So we just put them on a trailer and go slow and put our hazards on.
Yeah.
So I've been to a couple talks about bees. I am interested in getting bees. I don't know if I can. I know this sounds silly, but the whole idea of that buzzing noise, like I'm not afraid of bees. They don't bother me if they're buzzing around, if we're sitting outside or something like that. But that whole sound of when you're messing with the hives and that buzzing, it just kind of freaks me out a little bit. But I've heard that it's there's supposed to be a big bee producer or breeder, whatever they call those people. Like in Florida, there's a big store down there that people order bees from or nukes from.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard at some of these talks that it's better to get like swarms out in the woods in your area to find those, because they're already acclimated to your area where you live, as opposed to ordering them from Florida and they're not used to Kentucky weather? I mean, what is that a thing?
It is a thing. I don't know that it's like double blind, proven or whatever. I prefer to get mine local, and there's a lot. That's a like everything with bees. It's a little bit complicated. There's a lot of them in Florida. There's a lot of them in Georgia. That is where the bulk of the bees come from. And even at your bee clubs, if a guy is saying, "Hey, order your bees now," we'll have them on May, whatever. Usually, what he does is get in a truck and go down to Florida or Georgia and load it up with however many he's got ordered. Bring it up there and sell them to you, right?
Right.
Bees are what's called palandrous. All right, so if you get a bee queen and bees from Florida, say, right, the first time your queen is replaced and you get a new queen, right, she goes on a mating flight and she mates with like 8 or 10 or 15 drones from the local area. They cruise. They have a big drone congregation area, like the boys used to cruise around, the street by the mall, when they were teenagers. So they cruise, and the queens fly up, and they get all this sperm, and they pack it away, and they go back to the hive, and they never leave again unless they swarm. So as soon as you go your first 2 years and either catch a swarm or whatever, you're getting local bees, because whatever that queen is, she's tied in with, or the new queen, she's tied in with all the local yokels. But I always buy local because I like doing business with local people. You know what I mean?
Right,
We're preppers or homesteaders or whatever we are, whatever hybrid you are. The local community is where it's at. Number one, you're going to get bees that are proven here. And then number two, you're also providing economy, in the local environment. And I like that. So it's a win-win. Just find somebody that's got good bees, talk to other beekeepers. Again, go to the club, because I used to get mine. What you said, ladies from Jackson? There's a beekeeper down there.
Bill is from Jackson. Yeah.
Okay. There's a beekeeper down there in a place called Only, in Only, Tennessee, next to Only Baptist Church. And he sells what he calls Duck River bees, and they're local bees. And that's where most of my stock came from. But I'll tell you, their temperament is terrible. Like sometimes one of my friends, one of my little mentees comes over, and he has a habit of fidgeting with his hands, and he'll be out there swinging something or whatever, and bam, they'll just fly up and sting him in the head. They'll be 20 feet away, and I'm like, Charles, you got to learn to, you got to control your movements a little bit, So they're local bees, but they're not very well tempered. So I don't know what your local bees are like. I think it's a good idea. I know it's a lot, but it's a good idea to get local bees, but I don't think it matters in the big picture.
Yeah.
If you can't find good local bees.
What about the hives? What do you prefer, the ones that stack up or the horizontal ones?
Okay, so there's a lot of different kind of hives. The horizontal hives are really good if you're going to have a hive and you kind of know about bees a little bit, and you have bad back or whatever like that. But most of your reference material, and I know they're going to say, well, there's this book or this book, but most of your reference material and all of your like county extension classes and most of your beekeeping clubs, they're all going to be on the Langstroth, which is the stack hive, right? Because that's the standard commercial hive for America. So what I tell everybody is, if you like this foo-foo hive over here, if you like the Wary hive or the top bar or the horizontal Langstroth or whatever, that's cool. Learn on a Langstroth first, so you learn just what right looks like, get your bee legs under you, and then once you got that down pat and you're like, all right, I've kept my bees for 2 years and they hadn't died yet, I feel like I've got a pretty good idea, then get your foo-foo. That's the way I look at it.
Once you learn how to do it, yeah.
Right. Because all your references are going to be for a Langstroth. So when you're trying to interpret that to a horizontal hive or whatever, you can do it. The other problem is a lot of the other hives, they try to green or whatever. They don't have frames. They just have bars. So the bees build their comb, and it's kind of free built, and they think that's cool. And it is, if you're looking for wax. But see, every time you harvest honey, then you have to rip all that down and crush it and strain it, because you can't put it in a bee sling or a centrifuge or a separator, whatever you want to call it, because it would just sling all over the place, right?
Right.
It depends on where your goals are. if you just want a nice hive in the back and just kind of watch them and maybe get a little bit of honey every now and then. And I've got more questions.
So, what are your thoughts on the hives that you can turn a key in the back and drain the honey?
Like
Man,
those clothes.
Don't
yeah,
they sell those on Temu or
yeah,
something?
all the flow hive. And even my buddy Charles, the same guy, everybody at the bee club's like, this don't work. It doesn't work. It'll work 1 year and then they'll swarm. And that's why you keep finding them on eBay. And he was just like, no, my buddy says it worked good. And he got one. And the next year he got rid of it because it's a gimmick.
Yeah.
That's somebody who wants to have bees, stick it in the yard, turn on a spigot, get honey, turn off the spigot, and not worry about it. And that's not a beekeeper. And you're not going to keep bees that way. You'll be keep putting bees in it, maybe. Do that.
I think those people that buy one of those are the people that wear skinny jeans and yuppies and stuff like that. And it's like, I just want to go out there and look cool and get a little honey and then come back inside with my soy latte or something.
Right. Yeah. I just hope, what is it? What are they called? Flow Hive. I hope Flow Hive's lawyers aren't watching and they're going to send people after me. But yeah, no, I would never advise any of my friends or my people to do that.
Now, my question is, and it's like with Shelly. Shelly's like, the buzzing and all that kind of stuff. How often do you get stung?
Depends on.
And I know it depends on how much you mess with them. But everybody that I talk to is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you'd go out there and do that and then get stung.
Well, I mean, first off, bee stings aren't that bad. Okay, they're not like wasp stings. I mean, they some of them hurt and some of them don't. It just depends. If my mentor used to come over here. No lie, man. Golly, I'm forgetting his name now. He had his own hive company, Trevor Qualls. He would come over in a ball cap, a pair of sunglasses, a t-shirt, a pair of shorts, and flip-flops and work my hives. And I was like, Trevor. And one time he got stung right on the end of the nose. But he learned that way where you move real slow. You don't move over the hive. There's a lot of techniques to that. I'm not that guy. I bought the moon suit because I want to get in there and get my business done and get off. So you can learn, to not rile them up. And plus smoke's a big help. If you go slow and you smoke them, and then genetics, you get a bad hot hive. And if it's not because they've got mites or something, squish that queen and get a new queen, or make them make a new queen. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times it's just genetics. We're not far enough south to get a lot of that Africanized bee stuff in there, but there are just some bees that are just mean. But yeah, you're going to get stung. I get stung 2 or 3 times a year usually. Every now and then I'll get one of them hot hives and they'll come pouring out of there when I open it, and they'll get on my ankles or something, I usually get stung more when I'm weed eating around them. Really? They do not like that at all.
Well, oh yeah. Well, I know Billy at Permapastures has talked before that sometimes his bees get mad, going down there and weed eating, or if he's got his cell phone or something with him, something with the signals coming off the cell phone, that they just get irate with that. And he said, I can go down there and not have my cell phone and everything's fine. So I figure they can be temperamental just like any other animal can.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a no spray guy, but if I was a spray guy, I would Roundup under my hives. But I just think Roundup's poison, so I don't do it. But I'm thinking this year we might try on a couple of them to salt underneath our hives because they're in an area where I'm not going to grow anything anyway. But then I don't have to piss them off by weed eating around them. You know what I mean? Then I can just mow kind of the periphery, or maybe snip the bigger weeds out of the way. It don't bother them anyway. It just looks kind of trashy,
Can you do that? Like do that kind of maintenance stuff like that in the wintertime when they're
absolutely
cold up? Yeah.
Yeah. They ain't coming out in the wintertime unless you open the hive or something. You get a warm day, they will. But yeah, that's a good time to do it. But that's a lot of growing between spring and winter.
Bill says his wife's leukemia is directly related to Roundup.
I don't doubt that.
I don't doubt it a bit. That stuff is, I put up with weeds around here, and I'm like, I'm not going to spray it. Sometimes, like on the driveway, I've taken salt and done salt water before, and just spray the snot out of it. And it's like in biblical times, they would come in and salt the earth.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And literally, if you salt it enough, nothing's going to grow there.
That's right.
So
not for a while, anyway.
Yeah, I mean for a good long time. And then Forrest, The people with that buy the flow hives are the ones who wear the COVID mask alone in the car.
Yeah, we were just talking about them the other day, or walking down the sidewalk by themselves.
Yeah, that's so they don't lick the windows in the car. That's what the mask is for.
Yeah.
And then Shelly shakes her head.
Yeah. Window lickers.
Shelly, we need to come up with a counter. Like every time you shake your head, there'll be a number.
Was that a disapproving shake? We have to qualify them too. Score them.
We can do the eye roll or the head shake.
There you go. Vinegar
and dish soap can be used as a natural herbicide to kill weeds.
Yes,
yes,
sir.
it can.
I've done that.
Make it stronger.
Oh yeah, that or I'm afraid I'll take the blowtorch sometimes and go through and just blowtorch stuff, and then my wife comes out and she's like, "Why in the hell does it smell like a campfire out here?" I was like, "I'm burning weeds in the driveway," and she's like, "Okay." So
I've been experimenting with that thing, man. I've been burning them to the ground, wasting a lot of propane, but I've experimented with it a little bit, man. You can almost just wipe that thing across them and they still look kind of green and come out the next day and they're dead.
Yeah.
Those things are magic.
Yeah, just really wilting them real good.
Bill says, I've changed my wording about weeds as the vegetation growing. Most weeds are food for someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and now I make my husband a little crazy because when we bought our farm, there's all kinds of stuff out here. I was just starting to get into herbal remedies and all of that kind of stuff. And he's like, I'm going to mow all of that down. And I'm like, no, I don't want you to mow it down because I want to figure out what it is and whether or not I can use it. And he's like, yeah, I'm mowing it. But if I let him have the front yard and do that, he'll let me, keep some stuff in the back and he doesn't care about the pasture or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, luckily we're on the same sheet on that. Like in the spring, the clover blooms and then the plantain blooms. And so our grass we've only mowed it twice this year so far. Because, it got the plantain little blooms were about this tall, but the bees were just all in it. And I'm like, I'm not cutting it till they're done. Then when I get done cutting it, it looks like I got hay rolled out there, ready to roll up.
Yeah.
But, we rotate our pastures. We try not to mow our pastures, but every other year so that some of the biannuals will have time, like the bee balm and some of that, the ironweed.
Yeah.
I'm slowly getting my front yard all in clover because I absolutely despise mowing my yard. And the definition of insanity is doing something over and over expecting different results. Right. So really, when we're mowing our yard, we're all insane. So I'm just like, and that clover only gets, 6-8 inches tall, the white clover.
Right.
Like I can handle that. So
yeah, and it's medicinal. So it's medicinal. The plantain, narrowleaf, broadleaf plantain, and the dandelions that everybody tries to kill all that stuff, and all of it's medicinal or edible. Yeah. So it's like, really, you're just kind of defeating your whole program. You got food, and medicine.
When you get rid of all those weeds in your yard, you'll wish you had that one day when you don't have food.
Right.
Oh yeah, and because I'm bad about mowing the yard. It needs to be mowed right now, but I'm waiting because we have to have stuff. We have to have supplies for Williams compost, and I'm like, I'm going to wait. And I've got one of those pull behind yard rakes that throws it all in there. You can just pull it behind your lawnmower, and it sweeps everything up for you. That's what I do a lot of times, and I'll take it and either make compost with it or throw it to the animals after I've cut it.
Right.
So it gets a good use.
Worm beds too. Pile it on the worm bed. Yeah.
I've thought about doing some of the worms before. I just hadn't got into it yet.
Man, there was a guy up there in Ohio, Shelly. I don't know if you remember him, all the way back in the back right after you come in. He had that vermiculture thing going on, man. He had the worm tea, and he had this barrel system, and
he had like a big, it was like a big barrel thing. Yeah.
That was pretty neat. That was a little more trouble than I'm going to go to for worms, but.
Yeah, I tried to do worms, like in a tub and all that stuff. And I found out real quick, I'm not a worm person.
Yeah.
I'm just not, it's not my thing. I have rabbits and put rabbit poo in my garden and all that stuff. And I have a lot of worms in my garden because I have healthy soil in my raised beds. But I'm just not into raising worms.
Rabbit poo is magic.
Yeah, it is. It's gold.
Mm-hmm.
So
I got
we're getting close to coming up on an hour. Jason, why don't you go over the speakers?
Uh, let me pull them up because I will forget somebody. All right, give me a minute.
Greg, it's usually me who does that. That's why I did that. So
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, switching roles.
it's like I know he hasn't got that list in front of him.
Now look. All right, truth in advertising. These are my list, handwritten things. When Shelly has her list, she's like on her mouse. It's
Right
like,
here, hand list of all the people who are speaking at
holy
the
crap.
festival.
Oh, nice.
Her computer broke.
But
That's
I
why
do
she's
have
got
my
a handwritten.
spreadsheets. Don't get me wrong. I do have
I
my
was expecting
spreadsheet.
an Excel spreadsheet when he was going on.
Yeah, it Shelly does. I handwrite everything. Shelly types it in on the
Right there.
computer. So, all right, we've got TJ Bear Independent coming. William Bond will be there. Dr. Trevor, the Angry Viking therapist. Jay Addison with Prepared Citizens is going to be there. Brian and Susan Dudley with S&B Homestead Radio. Erica and Dylan from Chronically Healthy. Uh, Jeffrey and Elizabeth Banks. It's Buffalo Spirits.
Buffalo
Yes,
Spirit Farm, I think.
yeah, Buffalo Spirit Farm. Jeff Smith, Everyday Prepper, is going to be there talking. Suzanne Shires is going to be there. I'm excited because she's going to do how to find salt in the wild.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
She is a super woman.
yeah. And then Barbara Sue Kowalski is going to be there also speaking. So, and then Shelly will do all our 500,000 workshops. And it was
So,
funny.
y'all, go
Ahead.
ahead.
Well, the workshops, it's like we were coming up with these workshops, and I'm telling Shelly, when we were first getting this going this year, I'm like, hey, I've got another idea for a workshop. Do we have room? And she made the mistake of saying, yeah, go ahead and keep booking workshops. We've got plenty of room. So then I just keep going like every day. I'm like, I found somebody to do this. I found somebody to do that. And then finally she was like, put the brakes. We're running out of room.
So when we this is actually, isn't this our fourth festival? It's our fourth one, isn't it?
Yeah.
We switched gears on this one completely. For one thing, we went from 2 days to 3 days because we're only doing one festival a year. Because I don't know if y'all have ever put on a festival, but oh my God, it's a lot of work. So we wanted people to be able to come and leave with skills that they could go home and implement on their place, start doing these things, living a sustainable life, all of that kind of stuff. We have a butt ton of workshops for you to come to. And you'll be able to do things in them and all of that. We've got Jane Clark doing sourdough. Leslie Gossett is doing an herbal walk. Jennifer Sparkman is going to teach you about dog training. William Bond will be doing composting. We've got someone that's going to be doing chicken processing. We've got Jacob Peterson. He's going to be teaching knife use and bushcraft skills. Lawrence McCoy is coming back to do canning with everyone. Bruce DeVries is going to be teaching you how to make biochar. If you don't know what biochar is, you need to if you have a garden. Even if you have pigs, if you just all kinds of stuff, you need biochar in your life. Dayton Bornick is going to be teaching lockpicking 101 and how to get out of restraints. He's also going to be doing some stuff with our kids program. Suzanne Shires, not only is she going to be teaching us how to find salt in the wild, she's going to be teaching us how to ferment stuff with that salt, right? Miss Katie is going to be teaching yogurt and butter making. Mike Adkins is going to be doing a land navigation class. Greg is going to be there teaching about or doing a beekeeping workshop. We've got Greg Skeens is going to be doing cast iron cooking. I think it's come down to me and Jason are going to teach you how to bake bacon and sausage because we've not been able to find somebody to do that.
Yeah.
What's the chainsaw guy's name?
Robert Orkin.
He's going to be teaching chainsaw skills.
Yeah.
I need that class. I mean, I've used a chainsaw, but I always feel like I'm going to maim me or somebody else. I need a chainsaw class. And then Barbara Sue Kowalski and Mary Beth Skeens are going to be teaching how to make homemade seasonings, juices, and sauces on your homestead. I think that's it. There's
William,
a lot of stuff. You can go home and actually do a lot of things after this workshop for just $35 for the
yeah,
whole weekend, y'all. $35.
Can't
Kids
beat it.
17 and under get in free.
Can't beat that
Can't
with
beat
a stick.
it.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
I mean, that's a little over $12 a day. So,
And
and
most of those classes, if you were taking them out in the wild, you'd be $75-$100 a head for that. A
yeah,
lot of
I mean, realistically, one of these workshops pays your ticket.
them.
I mean, just one of those. Literally, if you drove down and you came to Greg's class, it'd be like that. That was I got more than $35 of value,
Exactly.
and there's no excuse. Well, I live like 3 hours away. That's a load of crap. We've got people coming from Iowa. We've got a guy coming in from Canada. People are coming in from South Dakota, Florida, Alabama, Maryland, Iowa, just all over the place. So it's kind of funny because I look at the ticket sales and I always click to see where the people are coming from. And I'm like, dang, there's like 3 people coming from Iowa right now. It's like, that's pretty cool.
And another thing that I want to mention, one of our vendors, um, I think this is the third time they've been to the festival. They're called Hives for Heroes.
Yeah.
If you are military or retired military, they have a program that you can become a beekeeper. They will set you up. They will hook you up with a mentor. They have a whole database of people. We've had people in the past that get hooked up, and I think I want to say it's a year-long program. And they help you find a club with equipment, all of that kind of stuff. All of their services are free. It's really an amazing program that they have. So if you are military or retired military and you want to get into beekeeping, you can go listen to Greg's class. You can talk to him. Find out if this is something that's for you, and then maybe the people from Hives for Heroes can hook you up with somebody in your area to help you get you started. Take advantage of that because it's a great program.
Hey, Shelly, I want to put in too, real quick. I always tell them in class too, but I love bees. Like I told you, it's like my crack. And so the class is only, an hour or whatever. There's only so much you can cover, but I'll be at the Honeybee Goodness Tent all day. And I'd like nothing better than to answer questions or talk about bees or anything. But I mean, bees in general, to anybody, anytime, the whole time we're there.
Awesome. 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 Hey, Skane's girl's in here. Hey, girl.
Yeah. And then Brian said looked at hotels last week and looked today. Prices are going up. Yeah. And then another thing, you might want to look. The festival is in Bowling Green, but I know some people have stayed before in Franklin, which Franklin's only about 15-minute drive south of Bowling Green, and
Right.
typically the prices are a little bit cheaper in Franklin.
And they have decent hotels down in Franklin. It's not, it's a nice little, there's a Cracker Barrel down there. There's a truck stop down there. You can go down, get your gas, get your food, all that kind of thing.
And
Franklin's not bad.
the Mint's down there too. You can go gamble now.
Yeah.
So, but they got a Mint in Bowling Green also.
Really? Where's it at?
And the old H.H. Gregg building behind the mall
Really?
by J.C. Penney.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, you can go gamble.
I've been seeing people on Facebook talking about going to the Mint and how much money they won and stuff. And I'm like, I thought they were going to Louisville or something. I didn't even know where it was at.
Yeah, they got the Mint in Franklin and they got the Mint in Bowling Green. I've never been to either one of them. So, all right, guys, we appreciate it. Greg, I appreciate you coming on here. We will be back. Shelly and I'll be back. What's the date? I got to look at my handwritten notes. Next Monday, the 14th, we'll be on with Suzanne Shires, talking to her at 6:30 on Monday. I'll be back on tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, assuming nothing goes crazy between now and then. So I'll be on here at 8 o'clock talking about some stuff. And then we have not decided. The 17th, everybody's going to be setting up. So we got to decide if we're doing something on the 17th or not, the day before.
I thought we decided that we were just going to do a live, just me and you.
All right.
We were going to walk around and talk to people who were there and all that kind of thing. Just do a live, right?
It'll be a surprise thing. We might give something away.
Okay.
We'll figure out something to give away. So, all
I
right,
have some things we
guys.
might be able to give away.
Well, see everyone. All right, Robert. See everyone next week. We're excited to see what's going on. All right, guys. We appreciate y'all being here, and we will see. I'll see y'all tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, and then Shelly will be back Monday. Guys, have a good night, and we will see you soon.